one of the things that our root chakra will ask us to look at is this sense of belonging and lack thereof. So Caroline Myss will often talk about the root chakra as our center that's connected to our tribal affiliations, right? Our tribes, the communities that we kind of like come in with. And I know that there are so many of us that are drawn to this type of path because it is such an incredibly uncommon path that we can feel like that proverbial black sheep, right? So I was listening to this song right before I started teaching my IRL class on this topic, and there was this lyric that just kind of like opened up my heart, and I was like, is this not like a root chakra lyric? And I'll post the link to the song in the replay of this, but it said, I am not the black sheep, I am the blueprint, right? I am not the black sheep, I am the blueprint. So when it comes to the spiritual space, I always felt like maybe I didn't belong in the certain places that I was in, the communities and the circles, and I ended up creating a path for myself that I created spaces that I wanted to belong in, right? That was kind of like the impetus for spirit school. So if I can just say a message to you all here, you all belong here, okay? You don't have to question that when it comes to any of my spaces. If you were drawn here, I truly believe that spirit is my agent and spirit is my algorithm, and there's something that connects us. There's something that's similar between us. And so just the fact that you are here and that you knew to be here, I believe that there's an essence of belonging here and now. But I know that it's also a very common trait for people who are drawn to be healers, who are drawn to this service work, that they have often experienced some sort of disenfranchisement, some sort of rupture within their family line. Do you understand this? Please drop me an emoji if this is you. I know for me, it wasn't so much as ruptures as it was being the first to do all the things. Right? Like I was the first to graduate. I was the first to leave the city of Vancouver. I was the first to travel. I was the first entrepreneur. I was the first to safely claim my indigeneity without being, the fear of being sent to like a school or a hospital. Right? Like the first. So all of that alone is kind of set up for me to be like, I don't belong anywhere. Like even when I got audited last year, it's like I didn't fit any of the tick boxes for the CRA, which is our version of the IRS, right? Like I fit no boxes. I just applied for the bespoke market. We're iconic at the bespoke market. This is going to be our 6th time going. And I didn't fit any of the boxes on the application. I had to put us under like homewares, right? Like, so it's like, I'm so used to not fitting in the box. So one of the things that you'll have to heal that shit for is this sense of belonging and understanding that that sense of belonging really is part of your inner world experience, right? Can you create within yourself a sense of belonging everywhere you go, within like your own skin, within your own essence? The second thing that we might be asked on our human journey to heal when it comes to what could come up within the root chakra is around humiliation. Oof, this is a big one in mediumship. How vulnerable it is to sit here, open up your awareness, and just have the audacity to say what you think you see, feel, know, hear, sense, smell, taste. And then the only thing that could validate you as a person's validation, like what is slippery slope we kind of get into around this, right? Because we need validation. It's like, yes, I understand this, but so many of us like just have such a wound around failing in front of others. Can you accept that? I know that this was probably one of the bigger ones that I personally had to heal and work through. I used to be so envious in my first few years of like different mediumship friends that I had and I met along the way that like started around the same time of me, but they like hit up Instagram right away and like they're doing stories and they were just so willing to develop in the public eye. I was like, oh, that could never be me. Oh, that could never be me. I'm like, I need to know what I'm doing before I go out there. And that was the path that I took. I took a very different path, and none is better or worse. Right? None is better or worse. This is a personal path of self-realization, but the path that I needed because I didn't have self-esteem. Self-esteem wasn't even in my vocabulary in 2013. It wasn't even in my vocabulary yet. And I didn't have it. And I didn't know that until I stepped into the mediumship arena. And this is where I really built my self-esteem, was in this space. But man, what a vulnerable ask spirit has us work with, what other people might think of us. I remember the first time in the corporate space, somebody asked me to come speak to 30 people about my quitting smoking journey. I was like, oh yeah, easy. Because I'm very personable. I can walk into any room. I insert myself in any public situation. I've never been a shy girl. So there was nothing to lead me to believe that anything but good things would happen. And I stood in front of this group who were all my colleagues. I knew them all. I hung out with them all. There was only 30 of us. And all of a sudden, the world goes black. And when I came to, I look at my friend Tana's eyes. She's like, are you okay? And I looked at her, I'm like, where are we? Like, why is everyone looking at me? I had complete amnesia of where we were, and I didn't know what stage fright was at that time. And oh my goodness, how akin humiliation and stage fright were. And that was a piece of myself I really had to heal. So then we're always trying to restore balance. I want you to have that term in your heart, restore balance. How do I restore balance in this moment? When we get to the heart, we're going to talk about ethics, and we'll talk a lot more about this. But how do we restore balance? So I always look at what's the opposite experience of humiliation, right? How do I bring balance to what I'm experiencing? Any words come up for you? Adoration, acceptance. So you all have to learn, if you work with me, vocabulary is huge for me. I'm always going to nerd out on words. So we're really going to nerd out on words. Humility. I like that one. Humiliation is limelight, compassion. Yeah. And so for me, the word that really came up to balance humiliation was dignity. 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 What a word. Dignity. Right? So what do we do to be dignified? And I can't believe I forgot to say this IRL, but boundaries. Right? Having boundaries can really help with your dignity. The spirit world actually has a reference for me around dignity, and it's a very clairsentient, which we'll talk about in next week in the sacral. But spirit makes me go like this. I always place my hand on one another, and the message for my client is, your loved one wants to thank you for allowing me to pass with dignity. And this always shows me that they gotta pass at home. It's quite a beautiful word that kind of takes me down this nice evidential and this message, right? Messages are highly evidential. Thank you for allowing me to stay at home. It was rooted in dignity. Thank you. And they show me by making me go like this. And this reference ties even deeper to my death doula school, where we got pamphlets on how to take care of people at home when they're passing. And that was actually the cover of it. Right? So let this be a lesson for you that the spirit world, and this is why I say the only prerequisite to mediumship is a life well lived, because the spirit world will use all the things that you're consuming, all the things that you're experiencing to relate. Again, relate is a root chakra word. Relate that to the person that you're working with. And we'll talk about relation when we talk about our spirit. For the people who are looking at moving from practicing mediumship into becoming professional mediumship, what you'll meet at the root chakra is the relationship to this work and money. One of the things that we'll have to look at when it comes to the root chakra, things that we can look at healing on our way to becoming clear channels for the spirit world, is our inherent beliefs systems. Right? That is one of the things that we come into the world that's weaved into our being, right? Beliefs are very root chakra. If you look at the ascension of going from belief to faith, that's a spiritual maturation process in itself. So when we're in the root chakra, we're really looking at our inherent beliefs, right? What were we kind of born into based off of land, cultural lineage? So when we think about our human experience, and as our empirical brain, our human brain starts to develop, what they say about 25, we start to fully develop our frontal cortex. This is where choice and consequence comes into play, because now we have consciousness, we have the brain power, we have the lived experience to start choosing what we believe to be true for ourselves in a way that supports us and how we want to live and how we want to be. So it is usually around this time that we start looking at our inherent beliefs. So one of your assignments for this week is just looking at, what does my culture, what does my lineage, what does my family say about mediumship, about spirit communication? So that's what I mean. We're talking about a maturation process, about what was instilled upon us versus what do we consciously choose for ourselves to be true. And this kind of segues us into our spiritual selves, right? So as we kind of like ascend through our mediumship experience and we look at the root chakra in a very spiritual way, I want to talk about relationality.